All right, so the first thing you're going to do is put in a horizon line, maybe 3 or 4 centimeters from the top, like that. And then remember, at each corner, you're going to have a vanishing point. When I say corner, I mean the ends of the horizon line. And then once you've got that, we're going to do a short vertical line, maybe 4 centimeters tall there, kind of in the middle, but on the 2/3 mark of the page. Then we're going to draw a line from the top of that a few centimeters back towards the vanishing point on the horizon line. Do the same on both. Try and get it the same length, but we're going to cap it by pushing our ruler vertically along to the shortest one and then just drawing it vertically. It's more important that that line is vertical than for those two lines to be both touching. Mine just happened to line up quite well, but it's really important that all our vertical lines are in fact vertical. Now we're going to do the same on the other side, but this time slightly longer. And again, trying to line them up so that they're about the same length. And then lining your ruler up with the shortest and focusing on not trying to get the ends to be equal, but more so on trying to get it vertical. Mine's a little bit off, but it's good enough. Now, just guessing, this is where we're using a bit of artistic license. We're going to guess where the center point of this is. And then to a dot, I'm going to do mine just above the horizon line, like that. And it's approximately halfway. Now, if I were you, I'd probably shorten this like that, because you don't want it too long. So just rub out that section, not now, but later. Okay, so we're going to draw a line up like that, and then down like this to make a triangle, and you want that to be as spot on as possible. Now, the line, mine's above the horizon line here, so you need to make sure that it points down ever so slightly as it is, but down to the vanishing point on the right. And then we're going to draw it nice and soft, and we're going to guess about where it's going to end, okay? And again, using just artistic license, we're going to, again, line our ruler up on the line of our first roof angle, okay? And we're just going to push it along, trying to keep it parallel to the corner of the building, and then draw that line somewhat accurate. And it doesn't need to be perfect, but just somewhat accurate. Cool. Now to do the vestibule, again, we're not doing it mathematically, we're just doing it with enough to make it look good, okay, as Van Gogh did. So work out where you want your vestibule to start. I'm going to put it here, a couple of maybe 1.5 centimeters
Is this one vertical?
in. Yeah, vertical line to start. Make sure it's really vertical and parallel to your corner there. Then just a tiny little line pointing up to the opposite vanishing point. And this one's not even 0.5 centimeter. Maybe if you want to go all out, you can go like 1 centimeter. Okay. And that will make it a relatively large vestibule. And then do the same for the bottom. Again, making sure that it lines up with the vanishing point top left. And it's very important here that your ruler is vertical. So worry more about a vertical line than making those two ends match. Okay. And then we're going to point the bottom of the vestibule up to the vanishing point on the opposite side of the page. And that can be maybe 2 centimeters, maybe a bit more. Okay, and we'll do the same with the top line as well. And again, when we're doing the vertical line, don't worry about how long the other lines are, just make sure it's vertical. Okay, so we're starting to get a few lines we don't need. You can rub out, that's okay, you can rub out any excess lines that you want. You're doing a good job.
Wait, how do I do the parallel line on the single line?
Okay, so the next point is doing the other side of the vestibule. And what I'd like you to do, please, is line your ruler up with that corner on the front of the vestibule. And we're just going to draw a line back to the vanishing point like this. Okay, so draw that line in there now. And that's the front of your vestibule done. At the moment, it's a flat roof. We're going to put a little, I guess, a gable roof on it. So again, find the halfway point, do a dot where you expect the triangle's going to go, and we're going to draw a line up from the corner to the top corner, like that, and do the same on this one. And then, so we've got a triangle now on the front. It'll be more obvious if I rub out these lines. Okay, and then this line will also point back like this towards the vanishing point. And then the trick here is to line this up like that and then just push it over to this corner here so it's parallel down to there, and you can see the vestibule starting to take shape. Cool. Now, in a similar style, we're going to do the tower on top. So your tower doesn't need to be too big. So what we'll do is we will draw a line pointing back to the vanishing point on the first triangle, just across the face of it like that. Okay, and then we'll do another one going back like this. Try and keep them the same distance, or the same length, I should say. Certainly not wider than the front one. And then we're going to do 3 vertical lines. 1, and start off by doing them all the same height, but obviously they're all going to be slightly different heights. Okay. Now, they're going to point down to the vanishing point from the center one. Okay? Because they're above the horizon line, they're going to be slightly skewed in their size. You following? Then we're going to put a steeple on. Now, I haven't left a huge amount of room, so my steeple is going to be short. And you want it to be somewhat in the middle of your triangle. Just like that. Cool. Now you can rub out any lines you don't need. I see. Actually made a bit of a mistake there. That should come up from here. Now remember, a lot of this detail is going to get lost when we start using oil pastel to do the colour, so don't worry about it too much. Now, to do things like a door on the front, like if you're doing a big barn door, okay, it'll start obviously at the bottom of the door, the wall. So we're going to draw some lines like this, making sure that the tops of them are in line, okay? Then work out about halfway, and then draw an arch going up and an arch coming down, and that will give us a nice door-like shape. Now you might just want to divide that section up a bit and then put the doors underneath, something like that. And then even the door handles need to kind of be in a line that points back to the vanishing point. So do your doorknobs like that. Now, if you're going to do windows, draw a very faint line off the bottom, pointing back to the vanishing point, like that. And then do one a little bit higher, which will be where the archway starts to be drawn in, and then another one for the top of the archway. And we're going to rub these lines out later, so just do them very faintly. Okay, now draw in some parallel lines. That will be the start of your window, and then draw in an arch like that. Again, it doesn't need to be perfect. Just do your best, because when we start using oil pastels, most of this detail will be lost anyway. So I'm doing 3 windows.
So do those lines have to be in line with the vanishing point?
Correct, yeah. So all lines going into the distance need to be in line with the vanishing point. Do you know why the vestibules were put on churches like this?
Yes.
Oh, for the Jewish person?
I do.
Yeah.
It's because so when God looks down at it, when you look at it from a bird's eye view, it looks like a cross.
Yep, exactly right. Cool. Okay, so we'll do them in pretty colours. Maybe draw some of the scenes out of Jesus' life on there as well, as they would have done in churches of those
They
days.
still do, and our chapel have got some as well.
That's right. Cool. Okay, and then of course just basic mountains, nothing too complex. Now we're not doing volcanoes. We're just doing
Yeah.
rolling hills like that. And you may, if you like, put a couple behind them as well, that are obviously much larger ones. Cool. And now if you want to do your fields, you can do that. The fence can be quite tricky. What I do is I just do the top of the fence line first, like that, and making sure you're drawing your lines back to the vanishing point. Okay. Then draw the height of your fence in next. So my fence is going to be this tall. Down like this. Drawing them back to the vanishing point. And then remember, it doesn't need to be perfect because you're not going to see that much detail when you're going over it in oil pastels. And we don't really use the ruler with the oil pastels. So we're just drawing over them freehand later on. But it's good to put in a guide. Now, the most important thing with the fence is that the top and the bottom go to the vanishing point, but also that the fence posts are vertical every single time. Otherwise, they end up looking like train tracks going past your church and not a fence. Or they look like your fence has fallen over. And again, this isn't really a make or break, but very much a nice to have. So the fence behind also needs to be pointed back towards the vanishing point. And again with the vertical lines. So that's very close to the back of the church, but that doesn't matter. It is the back. Okay. Yeah, so if you want to do maybe 3 or 4 houses, some trees, some shrubs and bushes, some haystacks, some animals and some people, then you can start adding that in too. Now you might like to do some shrubs in front of the building, maybe even some gravestones. If you wish. Yeah. Now for trees, the trick kind of is to work out how far over the horizon line you want your trees to be and work out the height. Let's say that's your tree in the distance. You might do a little collection of trees in the distance. And as they come closer, you keep the heights the same. Does that make sense? And that's a good way to trick your audience into thinking that you are a master of perspective. There you go. Now in Van Gogh style, you might even have one really big one in the middle. again, we'll go over that with oil pastel later. Now remember with the farm lines, we're going to do them coming very lightly, radiating out from the vanishing point. And they're not going to be absolute requirements, but good to know where they would end up being when you do them. So I would then go back like this, and I'd skip every second one. So that's the top one, skip that one to the third one, like that. And then I'd do this one, skip that one, this one, All right, so that's good enough layout for the farms, or for the paddocks at least. And then you can do what you want after that. You can add some gates or whatever to the church compound, put in some more tombstones. You can start doing basic outlines of haystacks, for example. Now the haystacks kind of have these bases on them. Okay, and then they'll obviously get smaller and smaller as they disappear. And using oil pastels, we'll just fill in the colour along those areas. All right, so hopefully that's enough to get you started. And remembering, listed on the board there are a bunch of other things you can add